everybody.
All right. Yeah. Hopefully that audio glitch isn't a thing happening. But anyways, welcome back to our multiverse marathon, where I did not know that the Chainsaw Massacre movies was a multiverse.
Yeah, well, it pretty much is because that they've rebooted it so many times. I mean, it's right up there with Halloween with how many times that it's been rebooted.
Is there any connections? Like, are there separate universes or any timeline connections at all to each other?
Uh, do you mean if Chainsaw Massacre is like, say, connected to Friday the 13th or anything like
No, I
that?
meant, I meant, are any of the movies connected to each other in the past? Like, did this happen all of a sudden? But did the first movie happen, the second movie happened, all of a
Well,
sudden the second movie didn't happen,
and
the first movie still
it,
did happen?
it gets pretty complicated. So yeah, it gets pretty complicated as far as I know. So
You got a chart to show or anything?
say what? Sorry,
You got a chart?
a chart. There should be. Here. Texas Chainsaw Massacre timeline. Okay, so there is a timeline that we can use. So
Right. If you can screen share it, feel free to, or share it to me and I can screen share it.
okay. All right, where? All right. Okay. So many of these up. I have too many tabs up.
I
Trying
know
to
that
find.
feeling.
Okay, yeah, someone's. Is that you or me?
I don't think it's me.
All right, so I guess someone's trying to call me on Facebook. Okay. All right, no one's trying to call me, so. All right, screen share. I share screen. Okay. All right. Can you see my screen?
1 second.
Okay. So can you see my screen
Yeah,
at
I see your
all?
screen.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So here's the timeline. So okay. So I guess we just started off with
With the original?
yeah with the original. Have you ever seen any of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies at all?
I have not, because bloody stuff has never been my forte.
Okay. I understand. So but yeah, I've seen all of them except for this one. This one I heard was really bad. So this one I heard was really bad. All right. I guess I thought this was streaming on my channel too, but
Well,
I
it
guess
is
not.
because the parent chat just came up.
Okay.
It's screaming
So
somewhere.
okay. Okay. Schnick commented. Sorry, I can't make it today. Feeling under the weather. Okay. I understand. And I hope you feel better. So, all right. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out 1973, 74, somewhere around there. It's technically not the first slasher movie because there was Psycho before it, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre really did help set the tone for a lot of slasher movies afterwards, like having a final girl and the killer wearing a mask. This was dated before Halloween. Halloween, definitely helped, start the whole, start the whole slasher craze. But if it wasn't for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there there definitely would be no Halloween or Friday the 13th or any of that. So yeah, as far as the horror genre goes, it definitely is a very important film. But yeah, it was low budget. It was an independent movie. The budget was around like $100,000. I mean, when you take into account that that a lot of movies are made for millions of dollars, that's insane. That Chainsaw Massacre, the original, was only made for like approximately around $100,000. And so, because of the low budget,
But what
so
would 100? What year was it made? 1975. You said for or
73, 74, somewhere around there.
so. So what? Even though it wasn't that long ago, but what would $100,000 then be today?
That's a good question. Okay, so I guess it was 1974 because when I type it in online. Okay, what's the word? Uh,
Inflation?
yeah, inflation. Okay, so today, according to this, it would be 800,000.
Still not a lot. Still not a lot.
Yeah, I mean it
I
is.
mean, I mean, it's a lot to people, not to us, but to movie making, it's not all that
Oh, definitely.
big.
Yeah, I mean, to us, if we had that much money, that would be awesome. But but for a movie, wow. And so, because of the movie's low budget, was why that they had to work extra hours. You know, just because of all the rental costs of like all the cameras and equipment. So because of that, all the filmmakers and all the actors had to work overtime. So we're talking like 12 to 14-hour days just to film that. And also, the actor who played Leatherface, Gunnar Hansen. So because of the film's low budget, I guess he never showered, and and he never changed clothes. So because of that, he smelt really bad. And during lunchtime, none of the other actors, ever wanted to be around him, which I guess really added, to his character. Just the fact that he didn't even want to do any of that. So, yeah. What I love about the movie is that it has like a documentary feel, and and that just really adds, to like the grittiness and to its intensity. I There was a screening of this movie not too long ago in my area, and I got to watch it on the big screen. For a movie that's almost 50 years old, it is still pretty intense, and that says a lot for a movie that's almost 50 years old.
Yeah.
So Shaq asks, I might have missed it, but did you mention that Texas Chainsaw Massacre? I did not know that. I didn't know it was originally distributed by a crime family. That's
See,
crazy.
see, Snick, you know more than you thought you did.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know more than you thought you did. Oh yeah, and the opening narration perfectly sets the tone and the mood for the entire movie, and so it's funny. It's funny how the way how they paid the opening narrator just to do his opening monologue, they paid him not with money, but with a joint of weed.
Wow.
So yeah, but yeah, and the same narrator like also would go on to narrate some of the future Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, but just his voice, the way how he did it, just so perfectly, just sets the tone for the whole entire movie. I mean, there are a few unintentionally funny moments in the original movie when I saw it at the movie theater again, but yeah, but other than its few minor flaws, I you know I definitely say that I definitely will say that it's a very effective film.
So, what's the plot of this movie, if there is a plot, besides just killing people?
So the plot of the movie is like a group of young people. They are on a road trip in Texas, and they pick up a hitchhiker, and the hitchhiker, is an insane guy. He's cutting himself right in front of everybody inside of this van, and then this group of young people ends up going to a house where they should not go, and yeah, and then Leatherface and his whole family shows up, and yeah, and it's pretty much them trying to survive against all that. So a pretty simple plot, but what I say is that a movie doesn't have to have a really complex plot in order for it to. I mean, it doesn't have to have a complex plot in order for it to be a good movie.
Uh,
So
True. Okay, so and in Friday the 13th, the bad guy came from killing somebody and he invasion. And the Friday the 13th, kid was drowned in the lake. And Halloween, this kid was just crazy from a childhood. What about Leatherface, whatever his name is? I think it's
Leatherface, Leatherface is supposed to be like a mentally deficient type character, and and so and Leatherface clearly comes from like a very dysfunctional family, so there's really not well. I guess it depends on what timeline you go by because in like two of the prequels, they certainly do explain his backstory, but in the original movie, they don't really go much into his backstory at all. So yeah.
so basically. Is it a family or college kids in this thing or what?
Uh, the group of young people, I say that they're around college age.
All right. And what made them? They trigger anything, or they just like I'm gonna kill these people over here?
Well, they don't really give a reason for why that they kill people, but I actually think that that makes the movie much more effective.
Okay.
But again, if you want more of the backstory, uh, some of the prequels from later on explain that. So yeah,
All right. We'll get to those eventually.
yeah, we will. Yeah, and the movie doesn't really have much of a soundtrack, which I think kind of adds, to like the eeriness of it. I mean, sometimes music definitely can make a movie, such as Jaws or Halloween. But
Now,
Chainsaw Massacre, it
was this
doesn't
in
really have that much of a score.
was this in color or was it still was the movie still black and whitish back in here?
Color. As far as I know, color movies first showed up in like the 1930s, somewhere around there, and
All right.
Chainsaw Massacre was 1974. So yeah,
Okay. So
and And
And,
the first sound
sorry.
movies came up in around like the early 1930s. So yeah.
Okay, I think I confused color movies and color TV because black and white TV, black and white until like sometime in the '60s. Still, I think.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Now, in this movie, did the killer die, or did he just escape, or what? That
The
would be seen
killer did
again.
not die. So he's pretty much chasing the final girl, and the final girl just barely gets away, and during the final shot, Leatherface is just shown just throwing his chainsaw around like up in the air. So he definitely lived at the very end.
All right.
So yeah,
So who?
other than that, I guess there's not really much else to say about the original movie.
So who's the survivor? Now is this a series where the sole survivor of the movie continues out to the whole series, or just for the one movie?
Barely. I mean, I guess she was mentioned in part two and part four, but we never really see her. And then so there actually was a brand new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie that came out this year, uh, and her character does appear in that, but I feel like we're jumping a little bit
All right.
too ahead. But
All
other
right.
than that, she wasn't really in the rest of the movies all
Okay.
that
So
much.
there's no like uh Sarah Connor from Terminator or Laurie Strode from Halloween going on here. Just all new
Well,
cast each time.
yeah, well, for the rest of the movies on, it pretty much was a new cast, but with the new one that came out this year, they pretty much tried to make her like Sarah Connor, and they pretty much tried to make her like Laurie Strode. But as far as I know, as far as what I can tell, it failed miserably.
Usually they do when they try to copy paste characters, not give them any originality at all.
Yeah, definitely. And to play devil's advocate, I totally get why that they did that. It's because Halloween 2018 was a big hit, and and Terminator 2 was a very well received movie, and so they want to capitalize on all that
Yeah,
success. So
true,
yeah.
true. But sometimes you got to adapt characters a bit like going back to our fail point here, Spider-Man. The MJ from the Sam Raimi movies is totally different from the MJ from the Tom Holland movies.
Yep.
They're the same
So
character pretty much, but they're totally different too.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I guess there's not much else to say about the original. I mean, for it being a low budget independent movie, it definitely was a big hit. Which for independent movies, you know, uh,
And did that big hit give it a better budget for the next film?
yep, yep, exactly. And with the movie being that big of a hit, is the reason why all the future movies afterwards ended up having a much bigger budget. But sadly, a lot of the movies afterwards were not hits. So I guess we're done talking about the original. Let's move on to Chainsaw Massacre 2. So the original director Toby Hooper came back, and from my understanding, one of the original plans for the movie was to have it be more dark and serious like the original. But then Toby Hooper realized that there's no way that he can top the original. So that's why that he went in a completely different direction with Chainsaw Massacre 2. Chainsaw Massacre 2 is more of like a horror comedy. I mean, even just by looking at the poster. I mean, here, just to show you what I mean. The poster of Chainsaw Massacre 2 pretty much is a parody of the Breakfast Club. So,
Oh God, Breakfast Club. Oh God. Thinking of Breakfast Club, did you ever see the 1917 Power Ranger movie?
the what, sorry?
No, no, the 2017 Power Ranger movie.
Yes, I did.
It's like in the it was that was totally a Breakfast Club thing too, because in the original series the five friends are like all nice and polite, and all we're the best students ever. But in the movie they're all detention bound Breakfast Club kids.
Yeah. And I actually saw that one at the movie theater actually, and there were plans to do a sequel. There were
Yeah,
plans to do a sequel.
at the end credit or mid credit scene they mentioned Tommy, who recently
Yeah,
passed away. But yeah,
but yeah, so but yeah, here's the poster side by side comparison. I mean, just look at it. It's a clear parody of it. So yeah.
so Massacre 2 came out after Breakfast Club then,
Yep.
around the same time period though, or
I know Chainsaw Massacre 2 was like 86, I believe, and Breakfast. So yeah, so Chainsaw Massacre 2 came out like a full 10 years after the original.
well, well that's really jumping on the bandwagon of their popularity.
All right. So this
Let's
came out in 1985. Chainsaw Massacre 2 was like the year after.
yeah, but it's like yeah, this is a great movie. We're gonna take 10 years to make the second. We're gonna take 10 years to make the sequel.
Yeah, and I mean, there have been tons of other movies, that have taken that long to be made, but yep, the
But
year after, it had a
basically,
budget of $4.5 million and it only made 8 million. Production. Originally, Toby Hooper was going to what? All right. Originally, he was just going to produce the film, but he could not find a director the film's budget would afford. According to a documentary, Electric Boogaloo, the production company Canon Films were expecting a horror film while Toby Hooper wanted to make a black comedy. When Canon viewed the movie, they were unhappy with the final product. The movie Cinemax was filmed at the closed Matterhorn amusement park in Prairie Dale, Texas. They shot in caves for the scenes inside the Sawyer home. Yeah, Gunnar Hansen, who played Leatherface in the original, was supposed to reprise his role, but claimed he had been offered scale plus 10%, with the 10% going to his agent. When he replied that he had no agent, they offered scale without the additional 10%. Hansen found the offer too low. Unit publicist Scott Holton offered an alternate story, claiming Hansen vacillated about the part and the offer was rescinded. Holton didn't believe the average viewer was even aware of who the original actors were, claiming no are Neil Hansen. Oh, okay, sorry. Who are Neil Hansen and Burns? So yeah, so only one actor from the original reprises his role. It's this guy here, and yeah, Bill Moseley, the guy in the middle. He's pretty much the guy like who steals the whole entire show from everybody in the entire movie. But yeah, I can see why some people don't like the movie because it's more of like a horror comedy, while the original is more of like a super serious horror film. But for viewing the movie for what it is, it's definitely a really entertaining movie. I can watch it, but I can see why some people don't like it. The thing that's confusing is that during the opening scene, Leatherface is shown holding a corpse while holding a chainsaw. I've always questioned, okay, why in the hell is he holding that corpse? Yeah, that part doesn't really make any sense. So yeah, but yeah, like I said, the movie is entertaining, but it's not as good as the original. But of course, I think that Toby Hooper knew that, while he was making this movie. So yeah,
So,
but yeah, but yeah, there are a few references to the original movie, but yeah, it's kind of more of like a standalone movie.
that, so like, really no connection at all. Just the second appearance. Like, oh, he's back. So does
Yeah,
he literally chainsaws everyone to death?
I haven't seen this movie in like well over 10 years, so I'm just going off of memory. But yeah,
Now, are these like
this one was pretty gory. I mean,
so these are like definitely on screen, not off screen things.
oh, definitely, yeah, and that's what I forgot to mention. Toby Hooper, the director of the original movie, despite the film's title, he actually was trying to get the movie to get a PG rating, but even then, he wasn't able to get a PG rating, and the film still got an R rating. Because you have to keep in mind,
that's just crazy. Like not even a PG-13. I'm getting for a PG rating.
well, you have to keep in mind. I mean, back when the original movie was released, there was only GPGN rated R.
Oh,
Back
okay.
then,
Okay.
so yeah,
Like,
so back then there was no PG-13. The
that's
two
that's still that's crazy. It's like, come on, PG, come take your kids to this movie. Okay, kids, come on, let's go. Like,
yeah, it is a pretty crazy thought of Chainsaw Massacre, the original movie, being PG, when nowadays PG movies are like Sonic the Hedgehog or The Lion King. But
jeez. And I thought it was crazy for let's see, parents to take their 5-year-old kid to see that I can't remember his name now, but the Mel Gibson Christ movie.
oh yeah, you're talking about Passion of the
Passion of the
Christ.
Christ, yeah. I was there with my church way back in the day. I was like, I looked down there. It's like, is that a toddler watching this movie of someone getting beaten to death?
Yeah, I remember when that movie came out. There was, I remember hearing about all the controversy with how violent the movie was, and I even remember my fourth grade teacher at that time, who was a devout Catholic. I remember that he was reading to all of us a newspaper article about the controversy about that movie, and I remember he was wanting all of us fourth graders, you know, like to have like a healthy debate about Passion of the Christ. I'm like, okay, I think that's a little bit too young, like for people to be debating about something as heavy as that.
Yeah, if fourth grade's too young, then preschool's definitely too young to watch that movie.
Yeah, definitely. I remember I wasn't allowed to watch that movie when it first came out. I wasn't allowed to watch it until I was in seventh grade.
Teenage years.
Yep, teenage years. Yeah.
But yeah, like, so I can just see you can take your kids to this movie. But as that movie was, this movie I can just I can still I can see people taking kids to this movie definitely.
But yeah, believe it or not, as insane as it sounds, Passion of the Christ actually is more gory than Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's insane. Wrap your head around that.
Plus with better graphics too with modern day.
Oh yeah, definitely. And so yeah. Anyways, we're getting off topic. So anyways,
That's what we do.
but yeah, Chainsaw Massacre 2. It did eventually gain a cult following over time. You know, despite its rather poor reception when the movie first came out. And so, because the movie didn't do that very well when it first came out, is why that for the next movie, I guess we can move on to the next movie.
All right.
Okay, so This movie came out right around the time when the Nightmare on Elm Street movies like were starting to end, and New Line
So,
Cinema wanted to cash in on the success of Nightmare on Elm Street.
so
So
how many years was this then? For,
1990s.
so, but only about 4 year difference then. Three,
Yep,
four
a
years.
4 year difference. And so New Line Cinema, and then got the rights to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and so they pretty much were wanting like a new horror franchise uh, after when Nightmare on Elm Street series wrapped up, and then that's why this movie got a big budget, well, a bigger budget. This was 5.7 million, while the previous movie was only 4.5 million. So yeah, so just a little bit bigger of a budget, but not by much. And and this movie, it's pretty much just a remake of the original movie. There's barely any continuity with the other two movies. And Ken Faree from the original Dawn of the Dead is in this movie, and his character was supposed to be dead during the during around the third act of the movie. They make it pretty clear, the fact that his character died because he got a chainsaw in the head. But then his character tested so well with all these with all these test audiences that they brought him back. But all that they did was just say that he got like a little wound on his head, which I think that's absurd because he so clearly died. But
They clearly died. What's this? Michael clearly died in the Halloween movies a few times, but he still came back somehow.
yeah, and so this movie also had a Battle an X rating, just like the other movie, but surprisingly, I've seen the unrated version. It's really not that much different. It's really not really that gory compared to the second movie. I mean, the second movie, you see a guy like chainsawed in half, while in this, a guy just shoots someone's ear off with a gun. But yeah, I mean, I don't even think that's even realistic, just to shoot an ear, clean off, and then but yet you still have the ear intact. But yeah, so I believe this was the first Chainsaw Massacre movie to not be filmed in Texas, which is crazy, because it's in the title of the movie itself.
Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah,
So where was it at? Kansas Massacre.
I think it was California, but let me check. Yeah, where was this film? That's a good question. But oh yeah, before we get into that, the director Jeff Burr, he actually got fired from the movie, but since that they couldn't find anybody to replace him with, they just decided to rehire him. Why he got fired? I'm guessing. Okay, filming took place in Valencia. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. California. I'm guessing they did that for budgetary reasons or something. I'm not sure,
No, I
but
mean,
yeah.
where the movie take place then? Like, where was it?
Well, because of the title, the movie's supposed to take place in Texas, but it
Okay,
was California.
so this should be called the California Massacre.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. But I mean, California Massacre just doesn't sound, it just doesn't sound as intimidating as Texas Chainsaw. So yeah, I can see why that they had that in the title. And but yeah, so yeah, and one trap of horror movies, if it's released in January, usually that's a red flag that the movie's going to be bad because January. Now, I will admit there have been a few exceptions, but for a lot of the time, horror movies released in January is like a dumping ground, for like really bad movies like Devil's Due and The Devil Inside. Uh, there also was that Grudge reboot that came out in January, like a year ago or so, and so yeah, and so the fact that this is a horror movie released in January, ouch, and New Line Cinema was expecting this to be expecting this to be their next big hit, but the movie bombed horribly at the box office. I mean, it bombed so bad that the movie wasn't even in the top 5 when it first came out. Ouch.
So what was it? What was it? The top 100 or something, at least, or what?
That's a good question. Wasn't wanting to do that. I will admit that I think that the trailer for the movie is pretty cool, but I mean, the movie itself, I think is just okay. I mean, it is the first Chainsaw Massacre movie to not be directed by Toby Hooper, and I appreciate they're trying to make it more serious, but during one of the fight scenes, they're using like this really cheesy like rock '90s music, and yeah, it was cringy. Okay, hopefully this can give you some information about its opening weekend. Yeah, they mentioned that in like the making of documentary with the movie, but I haven't watched that in years. So.
All right.
Jeff Burr was fired at the beginning of production. When nobody else accepted the job, he was rehired because they needed somebody. He claims that he was probably the 50th director offered the job. Now, 50th, I'm pretty sure that that's just what's the word? It's one of like those metaphorical numbers. What's the term? I for there's a term that people use like whenever they allegorically use numbers. I forget the term, but
So
screw
do
it.
I.
Hyperbolic, yeah, that's the term. Hyperbolic. So yeah. So when he says 50th director, I really don't think that he literally meant he was a 50th director. I'm pretty sure that he meant that just like more hyperbolically. So yeah, and crazy enough, Peter Jackson actually was one of the directors considered for it. It's a weird thought to think about because he would go on to make Lord of the Rings, but yeah, Peter Jackson originally started off his career with doing horror films,
Yeah, a lot of
and
people have weird starts in their career.
New Line Cinema forbade him from talking to Toby Hooper, but never found out why. Yeah, that's weird. I don't know why they would do that.
So,
Okay, film trailer was done even before they had a director and the production before the production even started. Wow, that's crazy.
so, uh, so far these have all been semi-connected, but not connected. They're all
Yeah, they
flowing
pretty much
through
are just
time.
semi. Yeah, the connection's pretty semi. I mean, there are a few mentions, but that's really all that there is, in order for there, to be much.
But so far, it hasn't been rebooted at all yet. It's all continuing. It's all continuing down the
Okay,
river.
so It looks like we might have a reason for why I was filmed in California, not Texas. Director Jeff Burr wanted to shoot the film in Texas using a 16 millimeter film, just like the original, but New Line rejected the idea because they had already built the house in California. Okay, so I'm guessing that that's why, you know. I'm guessing that because of the film studio already was in California, and so, you know, because all of it was already built, they just wanted to use it there just to make it easier. Yep, right here. Newland Cinema picked up the rights to the series, hoping that if successful, Leatherface pretty much could be like their new horror mascot, you know, such as like what Freddy Krueger was.
No.
But since the movie bombed horribly at the box office, they're like, screw this, and then that was why that they gave up the rights.
New Line. Well, they sound familiar. What stuff they made?
This was made in, well, it was filmed in 1989, but it came out in 1990. And
I,
according to
I, I mean, what, I mean, what else has New Line? Yeah, New Line. What else have they made?
New Line did Nightmare on Elm Street. They did Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Uh, they've done a few other movies, but according to IMDb, the house from the movie was also used in Alice Cooper's House of Fire music video. That's crazy. 3 chainsaws were used for the movie, each of which had a plastic dummy replica. The chainsaw weighed 80 pounds. Holy shit.
80 pounds. Gotta have a. You need some strong to lift that thing up.
Yeah, definitely. Director Jeff Burr wanted Gunnar Hansen to return, but now they're starting an agreement on salary.
Yeah, so I say that's more like a logging chainsaw. They used the Cadambo's redwood trees.
This is hilarious. John Hess lobbied to direct the movie, but New Line felt his ideas were too dark and gruesome. The title is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And you think his ideas are too dark and gruesome. What were you thinking? Wow, that's ridiculous. Oh yeah, and this movie has Viggo Mortensen. Speaking of Lord of the Rings, Viggo Mortensen would go on to appear in Lord of the Rings. But yeah, this up until the movie after, this movie performed the absolute worst at the box office. So that shows how bad that the movie did at the box office. So I guess we can move on to the next movie, Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, also called The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So one of the original writers, Kim Hinkle, decided to come back, but Kim Hinkle has been promoted to both writer and also the director. This was more of an independent movie. It was independent because of how the other 2 movies bombed horribly at the box office. I mean, the other 2 movies had like more of an actual film studio involved. Okay. This one didn't because of how poorly.
Now, this supposed to be Leatherface's kid or grandkid or something, or daughter or what?
Say what? Sorry.
Is this what Next Generation is supposed to be? Did he say he reproduced or something, had a kid or something, or?
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think in any of the movies he ever reproduced. So
because that makes it sound like Next Generation, something like, oh, this is the future. This like, oh, coming back, but now they're younger or something like that, or.
Yeah, I'm guessing they titled it that because it was a new generation, and I'm guessing that they were hoping to. They probably were hoping to reboot the series yet again. I mean, this series has been rebooted so many times, where each and every time they say, "Oh, this is the real sequel to the original movie," but then each and every time it fails. So, and then next time they try to reboot it again, people will go, yeah, sure it is. Hi, Simba. Hi, Simba. So, anyways, this film is really prominent because uh, this movie has early appearances from Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey. This was before either of them got famous. So, so then after they got famous, I know that they re-released this movie multiple times, and when they did, they would put both of their faces on like the poster of the movie. It's because they're trying to take advantage, like of how big of stars that they were. And Matthew McConaughey actually plays more of like the bad guy in this, and Matthew McConaughey, he's just having a ball. Wow, when he was filming the movie. Renee Zellweger actually plays, like the final girl. It's so crazy, to see both of them in this movie because nowadays we definitely know that neither of them ever would do a movie like this ever again. So yeah, watching them in this is really interesting. And Marilyn Burns, Paul A. Partain, and John Dugan from the original movie. All of them do reprise. Sorry, all of them do come back for this movie, but they do not play their same characters. Instead they're just playing someone else. But yeah, this one's regarded as being pretty bad too. It's often regarded as one of the worst horror movies ever made. And of course, just like with the previous two movies, this one this one was a failed financially. It definitely was a big financial failure, which is why that there wasn't a new movie for like 10 whole years. And one complaint is that Leatherface in the movie, he's kind of annoying. It's because he yells a lot. So so yeah, and it's also pretty much another remake of the original movie. So plot wise, I guess it's not very original, but yeah. So the previous two movies had budgets of like $4 to $5 million. This only had a budget of 600,000,
So,
and its
so
box
I'm
office.
guessing the first two, the next two movies before this, their box office didn't overmatch was under their budget then.
Yep, exactly. And then this movie at the box office, it only made 185 eight only like around $185,000 when it had a budget of 600,000.
Well, I think at this
Ouch!
point, I think at this point, most movie theaters would be like, it's not worth it.
Yeah, pretty much. Because critics panned it,
Yeah.
and then yeah, and then after that, studios were like, and then theaters were like, screw this, we're not showing
I,
it.
I know. I think it was the same thing a while for the Star Trek films too. Like the first few movies didn't make that great. Then Star Trek 4 made so much money that they had enough to make the next few movies and plus a whole new next generation TV series because of that movie. So
Yep.
this movie was not that at all.
Oh hell no. Oh hell no. Definitely not that case whatsoever. I mean, you know, because of Chainsaw Massacre 2, 3, and this movie, is why that we never got that. And this movie is the reason why that there wasn't another movie until like 2003. So yeah, honestly, there's not really much to say about part 4. I guess let's move on to the remake of the original movie. The original. Okay, so this had the biggest budget so far
So
with
this
nine
so this
million.
sorry, fast. So this is an official remake.
Yes, but yeah, Leatherface stays the same, but except that they change his name. In the original movie, he was like Bud Sawyer or something like that. But in the remake, they changed his name to Thomas Hewitt, and on top of that, they also changed his family. What's the actor's name? Arlie Ermy. Yeah,
The
Arlie.
guy, the guy, that the guy from that played always played the drill sergeant in movies and TV shows.
Yes, and yeah, and he's in this movie too. He he plays a sheriff, but he's not really a sheriff. Uh, he's just a sheriff like in disguise. Uh, and yeah, and uh, and he's also actually a part of the family. And yeah, Arlie Ermy steals the whole entire show. I mean, his character wasn't even in the original movie. I mean, this movie is faithful to the original movie, but it's not beat for beat a copy of it, which is what I appreciate about the movie. Because if it was just going to be beat for beat exactly the same, then watching the movie would be so pointless. I mean, if it's going to be so similar to the original movie, then why not just go watch the original movie? But yeah, this movie pretty much is responsible for why that the early 2000s and throughout the 2000s was why we had a craze of like doing horror remakes.
Okay. Now was this a? I was a bit. Now was this at least a better box office hit than other ones, or was it still a
Oh
flop?
yes, it was. This had a budget of $9.5 million, and it made 107.4 million.
Yeah, I'd say that's a little bit of a profit.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And so, and because of that, every other studio and then said, "Hey, this was a horror remake that made a lot of money." So, so then afterwards they're like, "Hey, what are some horror properties that we have?" And and they said, "Oh, if we have Halloween, let's remake that. Oh, if we have Hellraiser, let's remake that," and so on and so forth. But yeah, but yeah, even the original narrator uh, comes back, John Larroquette. Sorry if I mispronounced his name. I tried, but yeah, I'm actually surprised that I got negative reviews from critics. I actually don't agree with the bad reviews like from critics. I actually really honestly thoroughly enjoyed the remake. Laramie, yeah, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but crap, I just forgot what I was gonna say.
We're talking about the profits.
Yeah, and they, but yeah, and the movie mostly does stay true, to the plot and and to the grittiness of the original movie, but it's definitely a lot more mainstream, which makes sense. Is because it has a significantly bigger budget than the original movie. But I will admit that it's definitely one of the better horror remakes out there. And at the very end of the movie, this is why there wasn't a sequel to this, but instead there was a prequel made. At the very end, Jessica Biel cuts off Leatherface's arm. So I have to admit, for them to do that, that actually was a pretty ballsy thing for them to do that. And yeah, I think I reviewed this movie on my channel like well over 10 years ago.
So back to the beginning of your channel then.
Yeah, around there, yeah. But yeah, I definitely will say that it's one of the best horror movie remakes out there. Now, there are some pretty bad remakes out there. Now, will I say it's better than the original? I don't know. That I don't know, but I definitely will say that it definitely was a pretty entertaining movie. They do have the hitchhiker in this, but the hitchhiker is scary, but not in the same way. rather than the hitchhiker cutting themselves in front of him, the hitchhiker realizes like that they're going back to the house that she literally just escaped from. She grabs out a gun and then she shoots herself in the head. You know, I love that they did that is because that's shocking and scary, but they did it in a different way. So yeah, and and just the thought that they're driving in a car, you know, with like a dead person, like who just shot themselves. But yeah, just but yeah, just
So you said
that was
next was a
horrifying.
prequel.
Yeah, the next one is a prequel. This actually was the first R-rated movie that I saw at the movie theater. This came out in 2006. But yeah, the original director did not come back. Instead, Jonathan Liebsman, who later on would go on to direct Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shells or something like that. And so this isn't a sequel simply because that Leatherface got his arm cut off at the very end. And then they decided to make this a prequel. Yeah, the famous dinner scene from the original movie wasn't in the remake. They got a lot of complaints about that, so that's why that they added in the famous dinner scene into this movie instead. Because this movie is a prequel, you already know that all the main characters are going to die, so it kind of takes away from the suspense. But yeah, the movie originally had the subtitle "The Origin," and New Line Cinema had to pay 3.1 million more than expected in order to keep the rights to the franchise after Dimension made a large offer to buy it. So Dimension Films used to have the rights to the Halloween franchise and they had the rights to the Hellraiser franchise. So if that would have paid off, you know, no pun intended, uh, there definitely would have been a possibility that we could have seen a crossover with Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the Hellraiser movies. So
Well, Travis here did not like it at all. He said,
yeah, the prequel. Yeah, I remember that I really liked the movie when it first came out, simply because I was like what 13 years old. It was my first R-rated movie at the movie theater, so I think those are the only reasons why that I liked it at that time. As I've gone older, yeah, I could definitely see more of the movie's flaws as I get older, especially with during the end, like when Jordana Brewster's character is just sitting in the car, and then Leatherface somehow is in the backseat of the car hiding with a giant ass chainsaw, and then and then cuts right through the chair. Like, how in the hell did she not notice that?
or hear it.
So, Travis,
Like,
I'm just curious. What are your reasons for hating the Chainsaw Massacre remake? I mean, I totally get why hating the prequel. I mean, because because it's a prequel, you already know all the characters are gonna die. But yeah, I'm just curious. What are your reasons for it? Mindless gore fest? Yeah, I could definitely understand that. But yeah, the original movie, yeah, it's definitely a masterpiece. Chainsaw Massacre 2, it's kind of a guilty pleasure for me. Chainsaw Massacre 3, not a great movie by any means. I can watch it as a time waster. But
hey,
yeah,
can you go? Sorry, can you go back to that timeline thing you had before?
yeah. Okay, here it is.
Now it says ignore these, ignores these, or
Okay, so we talked about 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so part 4 actually ignores 3 and 2. Okay, so the fourth movie is trying to be the real Chainsaw Massacre 2, but then that failed. And so, okay, so yeah, these two have nothing to do with the original movie because this was a remake. And then we're just now right here talking about the prequel to
Right.
this. But yeah, so crap. I haven't seen the prequel since I was a freshman in high school. That was 14 years ago. So I'm mostly going off of memory. But yeah, I didn't have enough time to rewatch the movies and prep for this. So
But unlike the Halloween timeline and the Terminator timeline, these are really disconnected a whole bunch.
I mean, their connection is very, very, very vague. Well, like I said, there's brief mentions in these two movies, and then a little bit of connections with the fourth movie to the first movie. But yeah, I mean, but yeah, I will admit when I saw Chainsaw Massacre the beginning, I wasn't really scared. So I guess that says a lot. 2003 had unlikable characters, boring plot, over the top gore. Point of being hilarious, where the original had a less is more approach. Yeah, I definitely will admit that the original definitely is a lot better than the remake because I love its documentary feel. And despite its title, it's really not all that gory of a movie. But yeah, the less
Yeah,
is more approach. Yeah, it
yeah.
definitely made for a much better movie.
I think I might be believe it here. I think the only time the original movie was actually worse than the sequels was the Star Trek motion picture movie.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, Travis. The Netflix movie, yeah. We'll get into that eventually. But yeah, the characters in the prequel, they're pretty forgettable. I mean, I don't even remember any of the characters' names. So that says a lot. And
So is
you know,
next the next. So is next the other prequel, second prequel they made,
so
was totally
yeah.
different.
Then what came afterwards, quote unquote, they're trying to make it again the real Chainsaw Massacre 2. Because this is yet another reboot, ignoring all the other movies, but being a direct sequel to the very original movie. This movie came out almost 10 years ago now, which is insane. So this movie has Alexandra Daddario, who is supposed to play the granddaughter of Leatherface, but realistically, his daughter would have been in her 40s. But in this movie, she does not look 40 whatsoever. She looks like she looks like she's in her 20s. And oh man, this movie was so bad. And again, it's a horror movie released in January, so that was a bad sign. Now, again, I want to make myself clear. Not every horror movie that's been released in January has been bad. I mean, even that Scream movie, that came out this year, came out in January. I saw it at the theater, and I actually did enjoy it. I'm just saying that it seems to me, for the most part, a lot of horror films released in January are notorious for being absolutely terrible. So yeah, you know they decided to take out massacre from the title because they thought that would have made it too controversial because this came out like just like not long after the Sandy Hook shooting happened. So they took out massacre from the title, and two of the original actors come back again playing different characters.
The
Uh,
Texas Chainsaw uh, Love Fest.
oh, do your thing, cuz. Oh, that line was so cheesy in this movie, and oh man, it was bad. I mean, the characters suck, the plot is stupid, and oh my god, the plot is so nonsensical. it's bad, and the movie came out right when 3D was like a big craze at that time. Because of Avatar, and because Avatar 2 is coming out, we probably can safely infer that 3D is going to come back yet again. But yeah, oh man, this movie was bad. And oh man, I remember me and my older brother actually were going to go see it at the movie theater, but then we heard all the really bad reviews. We were like, oh okay, we don't want to waste our time and money, so yeah, him and I skipped it. So Lionsgate at this time, got the rights to Chainsaw Massacre. There was a whole bunch of plans to do a bunch of sequels. Huh? Does that sound familiar? Does that sound like what they're gonna do here? Have it be a movie that starts off a whole new series. And they tried again here, and it failed. So what did they do? They made another prequel. Another prequel. But wait, but they already made a prequel here.
But Eric, that's a prequel to the remake, not the original movie. Now, the
Right,
actual movie.
right, but it was so tedious. They're like, we've already had a prequel. Like, you're gonna give us two explanations for for how he got his chainsaw and all that crap. But yeah, I I saw the second prequel on Redbox. Oh man, it was bad. It was really forgettable.
Is that why it's called another effing prequel?
Yep, another. Like really, like we didn't need another prequel. Like
And there's not
nobody
even
was
connect.
wanting that.
It's not even the prequel of the prequel. They're totally different continuities here.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely do agree, Travis. The timeline for Texas Chainsaw Massacre is even more messy than the Halloween franchise, and that says a lot. But yeah, oh man, the only scene I remember in this movie was like the barnyard scene. That's it. It's such a gettable movie, and I remember at that time I thought it was a ripoff of like the Devil's Rejects. So yeah, if you've seen the Devil's Rejects, you've already seen the second prequel. So yeah. So yeah, it was such a pointless movie. Like, what was the point to even making? I mean, granted, I get it, for money, but creatively, like, there was like no point. Nobody wanted it, and then of course, I don't even think that it even went to theaters.
So this was like a direct to at this point what Blu-ray release or DVD release.
I think so. Yeah. Oh man, it was bad.
Like a bargain. Here you go. Here's a dollar bin at Walmart. Have your Massacre
Yeah,
movie.
pretty much. Yeah.
Now you said they tried to do a Netflix series too or something like that.
Wow. So at the box office, it made only $1.5 million. So
I think
yeah,
I yeah I think he has it right there.
seems like they only give the rights to the franchise. Yep, that's spot on.
It's like when Fox or something kept doing X-Men or I mean or no Fantastic Four movies even though they sucked. This movie sucked. Let's make it again though. Maybe we'll right this time.
Yeah, the movie was so bad, and yeah, oh man, this movie was so bad. It's so forgettable. Like, if somebody were to ask me what the characters' names were or anything, I'd be like, guy, girl. Yeah, it's just a really for unforgettable movie. And yeah, it seemed like the studio was like, oh shoot, well we have to make a new movie to keep the rights, so let's just do a prequel. It was just so lazily done, and it just seemed like that there was no effort put into it. So what did they do afterwards? Reboot it again and again. The real Chainsaw Massacre 2.
And this year's
Yep, the one
blockbuster.
that came out this year. And oh man, it was supposed to be released to the it was supposed to be released to theaters. But with the test screening, it tested so poorly that they said, yeah, there's no way that we could put this out in theaters. So then Netflix said, yeah, we will buy it. So that's why it went on Netflix instead of going to see it at the movie theater. That speaks volumes. And so they finally brought back Sally from the original movie, but the original actress who played her, Marilyn Burns, passed away. So going back to what you said about it having reoccurring characters, they waited too long, you know, to finally bring her character back. And it's pretty much a ripoff of Halloween 2018. But when they bring her character back, it's so pointless. Her character's not really in the movie a whole lot, and then she just gets killed by Leatherface. Like, you finally bring back an original character, and you just completely wasted her. So yeah, this movie was bad. Like, there's that infamous scene where they're poking at, I guess, trying to be relevant with like cancel culture. Leatherface is in like a bus about to massacre all these guys or these people. One of them has a phone is recording and he says, "Cancel this." Like, oh my god, that is the best that you could come up with, was cancel this. The only good thing with the Netflix film is that it's short. Yep, at least that there's that. In all seriousness, behind the scenes drama is more interesting than the actual movie. Oh, definitely, yeah. That happens a lot, with a lot of movies, like that. The making of ends up being a lot more interesting than the movie itself. The best example definitely is Fantastic. I would love to see an actual movie made about that.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that the new four coming up in the MCU in a year or two will make people like actually make the Fantastic Four good again.
Yeah, but oh man, and then Legendary Pictures then got the rights to this, and they even brought on Fede Alvarez, who's most famous for doing the Evil Dead remake, and he did the first Don't Breathe movie. When I first heard that, I was like, hey, this movie actually might have hope at least being decent. But oh man, that didn't help the movie at all. And the fact that they've said that they were going to make this the proper Chainsaw Massacre 2 so many times, so that when they announced it for this movie, I was like, give me a freaking break. And the movie came out and it sucked. So is anyone really surprised at this point? And yeah. But yeah.
And thus ends, until the next one, the Chainsaw Massacre timeline.
Pretty much. I heard that there's a video game being made. There already was a video game for the Atari 2600. The Angry Video Game Nerd did a review of it, and
So
honestly, that's probably the
that's
best.
probably about the first one, right?
Yeah, it is. And so, yeah, I mean, there have been comic books made about, the movies, but as far as the movie timeline itself goes, it all ends here. And oh man,
Hopefully, until someone that actually knows what they're doing with it.
yeah. And a lot of people have been agreeing with me. Maybe the franchise just needs to come to an end because really, the best movie was the original movie.
Yeah, yeah,
But
I can see it. I can see it now. Next year, TikTok Massacre series on Disney Plus.
that will never happen.
No. On Disney Junior.
Oh man, that would be hilarious. Wait until on Travis says until one comes out called Chainsaw, a Leatherface story or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, apparently, I don't know. Apparently, there's a Disney Junior series that my 2-year-old niece loves called Spidey about little baby Spider-Man stuff. So maybe I'll know. Maybe I'll have a baby Chainsaw Massacres.
One thing that I am kind of irritated about with this new trend of horror films, like it's a sequel to the original, ignoring all the other movies, but calling it the same thing as the original movie. Is it really that much to just put in like a subtitle, like Chainsaw Massacre Resurgence, Reloaded, something?
Yeah, like
That that's so lazy, to just call it the same thing as the original movie.
yeah,
Oh, Travis.
especially after they drop the numbers, drop the numbers.
Yeah, and Travis says, "Leatherface in space." I won't be surprised if it is if someday they end up doing that shit.
Well, they did Jason in space.
Yep, and they also did Leprechaun in space.
The Leatherface Star Wars crossover.
Yeah, and a lot of people complain with like the later Chainsaw Massacre movies. Leatherface was more like Jason, which he never was supposed to be like that. So yeah, so I guess this ends the
Well,
franchise. I mean, they probably will reboot it yet again, but
so okay, so everyone agrees that the very original one was the best one. So which one of all these is the worst of the?
ooh, that's a good question. Gotta go back to that. Yeah. Oh man, that's a good question. 3D was pretty bad. Oh man, that's a good question because some of them are really bad. Like Next Generation 3D and the second prequel were all pretty bad. The remake movies I can tolerate. I mean, they're not great, but I can tolerate them. I'm gonna say because of the massive logic issues and that stupid "do your thing" cuz. My opinion, I'm gonna go with Chainsaw Massacre 3D.
Uh, you hear here, folks. Not Eric V approved.
Yep, that is the worst one of the entire series, in my own opinion. Chainsaw Massacre 2, it may not be a great movie, but at least it's something entertaining. You know, it's a guilty pleasure, so I can be entertained by it. Chainsaw Massacre 3, I it's not as entertaining as the first two, but I can watch it as like a time waster. The Next Generation is pretty bad. 3D sucks. The second prequel so pointless. The Netflix movie made me want to bash my head against a wall.
So the timeline, like officially, the three movies are another effing prequel. The original and the 3D ones are all continuity. The other ones totally aren't.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
All right. So before we go, what non-chainsaw adventure happening on your channel? Your two channels coming up next week.
well, on Eric the Tyrannoceratops, I'm going to debunk vaccines cause autism. And there was a Christmas special planned for things that piss me off. It's going to be coming out here soon. So, yeah, look forward to
Nice.
that.
Nice. Well, maybe you can have Simba here be a be a be a mock Chainsaw Massacre Leatherface in your upcoming Disney Off 3 movie.
The Beagle Chainsaw Massacre.
He can he can finally rid the universe of your Kenny character.
Yeah, Kenny Horn Rickson.
All right. So, coming up on my channel next week is a three-fer, 3 episodes of this series. Tuesday, we talking about Australian history with the real Australian. Wednesday, me and Eric here are going to be talking about Love and Thunder, the next Marvel movie in the series in this Phase 4 series. I think it's Phase 4 still.
I think so, yeah.
And then finally on Saturday, me and Abel will be talking about the Vikings of England
Awesome.
and the Danelaw. Because why not?
Alrighty.
All right.
Thank you for having me on.
All right. Got your catchphrase ready to go?
I am Eric Vierthaler, 92, aka Eric the Tyrannoceratops, and I'm out.
All right. And never stop learning. Enjoy the randomness. We'll see y'all Tuesday. Be
Thank you,
there.
Gator.
Bye.